What? There's always something, man. There's always something. I did not fix the post-timer vid either. I'll get that fixed. Either way, hey, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, man, how you doing? It's good to see you.
You too. It has been a week. It has been a week.
Right? I mean, it feels great to come on to the show. I heard that was a nice, like, exhale there. Like,
yes. No, going. I mean, for me at least, it's gonna be mostly no meeting Friday. I don't know how yours is turning out to be, but
I'm almost there. I have a couple of meetings, but it's all meetings that I'm looking forward to. So yeah, it's gonna be a low meeting Friday, not a no meeting Friday.
Low meeting. Yes. Nicely done. I like it. Yeah, same thing. I got one call tomorrow, and I'm like, awesome. I've got a ton of stuff to do, which is actually kind of nice. So get some things done.
Yeah.
But yeah,
oh no,
we are back on the show, everybody. Thank you for being here. We have some awesome guests tonight. This is fantastic. Yes. Or like folks in the chat. So Kyle Winters is in the house. Rich Vibes. Joanna's here. I think we've got some other folks in too. Say hi if you're around watching. We'd love to catch up with you. And thank you for being on the brand new channel.
Oh yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited. So like, this was something that's been weeks in the works, Jeff, and a big thanks to you for like getting this done. Jeff, I know that we were originally on Jeff Bull Tech Home on all of the Jeff Bull Tech and all of the YouTube channel that's there, but now Kessel Chat's its own channel.
Yep, exactly. It feels good to have its own place for sure. Yeah, I like it's nice, and now both of us have been working on separate videos as we've had time to do it, which means we haven't had a lot of time to do it, unfortunately, but we've got these recorded videos we want to do. They're like short form, pick a topic. And I know we're both going to get that taken care of here soon. So we'll have more content on the channel soon. But yeah, it's nice to have a permanent home for the Kessel Chat in its own little world, which is kind of fantastic. Oh, There you are, Ryan. Okay, sorry, your video froze there for just a second. It's okay. So, on the show tonight, I forget who came up with this idea. Yep, right there above Ryan. I don't know who came up with it, but I love it. And there's so many of them that we love to hate. So many.
Yes. I'm like really excited about this. I see Rich is here, so I'm gonna be probably starting with Khan from The Wrath of Khan. But no, seriously,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I tried to do you proud last night. Both you and Rich proud. On Netflix, I did not realize the entire it looks like the entirety of Star Trek: The Next Generation is there. I watched the very first episode last night, which I don't even remember ever watching, but my parents were addicted to that show when it was actually on the air originally, and we used to watch it. And I watched the first episode. I'm like, wow, they dropped Q like right in the very beginning of that show. I'm like, wow, I thought he was like somebody who just showed up randomly later and like put a spin on it. Like, no, he was in your face right away. I'm like, this guy is psychotic. Holy crap.
Yes, he is, and that's also like, there's a great story behind that, which is basically they had a story for an hour of television, and then Gene Roddenberry was like, we're going to do 2 hours of television. And so then they were like, Gene, we can't get 2 hours of television in. And then over the weekend, Gene Roddenberry added an hour in, and it's all the Q stuff. He just like threw that into the story. That's why it like sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yes.
I will say this, because of the fact that you watched the first episode, I have often had people come to me, like with Star Wars, and say, where should I start? And with Star Wars, I will say, well, what do you know? And I'll say, maybe start with episode 4, or with the original Star Wars, or as I would call it, Star Wars. So maybe start there, or if you're like really into like learning about where Star Wars is now, like you can go and do the sequel trilogy. But with Star Trek: The Next Generation, I almost uniformly tell people you don't need to know anything about what happened in seasons 1 and 2. You can just start at season 3 and it's fine. Season 2 has some of the highest points and then the lowest points, and but you can definitely like just start at season 3. As they say, the series had to grow the beard.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. They have to, which I love. I love how growing the beard is the reverse of jumping the shark. Riker had to grow his beard. Once Riker grew the beard, the series was great.
You just blew my mind. I've never thought about being able to, like, you go to a point and then you jump the shark and then it's just, let it go, man. Just let it go. Yep. I've never thought that there'd be an inverse of that where you start in a place. You know what? It actually reminds me of Parks and Rec. Yes, and we will get to the Star Wars stuff in a second. Rich, you calm yourself. We will get to the Star Wars stuff in a second. But Parks and Rec, I never liked The Office. I tried watching it. It felt too awkward for me. And then, but I have nothing but fond memories of Parks and Rec. And my wife was like, oh, that's because I had you start watching it at season 3 or season 2. One of them. And I'm like, what? She's like, let's go back and watch the first season. And sure enough, 2 episodes in, I'm like, does it get any less awkward? She goes, nope. The whole first season is just awkward. Just nothing but awkward pants the entire time. It's just like we got like halfway through and I'm like, time out. I don't need to see this that bad. And then it's growing the beard. It's the opposite of jumping the shark. You got to start from here and get to the place where, oh, now it's just funny. Okay.
Oh no, you had to with Parks and Rec, you had what is it? Mark Brandanaquits? You gotta Brandanaquits. You gotta get him out of there. And then suddenly you get Adam Scott, who's in Star Trek First Contact. You get Adam Scott and you get Rob Lowe.
Yep.
And you also get like the best of like all of the characters, all of like the background players become like full characters, and yeah, like I love Parks and Rec. I'm a huge fan of The Office though too. Oh, while you
So there we go.
Oh,
my hero right there. I want to be able to woodwork like Nick Offerman right there.
Oh, that's interesting that you have this book.
I had no idea, dude. That is awesome. But no. See, I gotta put mine away because you have the big signed copy right there on the front.
Yeah, that's right. I was really excited about that. This was the signed copy. I'm a huge Nick Offerman fan, but yeah, I was gonna try to get that while your back was turned. It's just right behind me here. That like made my whole day. That's awesome. So welcome back to the Pawnee chat. As we talk about everything Office and Mike.
Exactly.
What is it, Mike Schur, who does those shows? But yeah, it's actually a really great thing. It's like growing the beard is a thing that even happens. Growing the beard and jumping the shark even happens in Star Wars, where it's like you have shows like you have movies where it's like I feel like there was a jump the shark moment in Rise of Skywalker where it's like you're a Palpatine.
Yeah.
I feel like I could never have. I feel like someone should have been like, hey, like, let's try to figure out a better way to say that than you're a Palpatine. It's like this joke that I used to have with my daughter, who's like a huge Harry Potter fan, and she used to say like, what happens when, the Goblet of Fire, when she was like a little girl and she was reading the books, and I was like, oh, well, if you drink from the Goblet of Fire, you become a Voldemort. And she was like, oh my gosh. And so I always had these jokes about like, oh yeah, you're a Voldemort or you're a Palpatine. And then when they actually said it, I was like, oh no, that's terrible. That's jumping the shark. Whereas I feel like somewhere in episode 3, they grow the beard. But yeah, I feel like there's that Star Wars even has its moments of kind of getting its act in order. So yeah, if you're ever wanting to watch Star Trek Next Generation, Jeff, which is a great show, one of the greatest shows, so you ignore seasons 1 and 2.
Okay.
Maybe watch Q Who from season 2, and that would be it.
Okay. Nailed it. All right. So back to the Star Wars chat, the Kessel chat. Right, Rich. Thank you for reminding me, Rich, because we totally forgot this was about Star Wars. Rich. All the hearts, buddy. We love you, man. Thank you for being here. So above, where it is, it's over there, someplace above Ryan's head, right there.
Yeah, it's up there. Topic. We're going to talk about villains.
The villains that we love to hate, or just that you love to love, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, real quick, I want to put. Let me see if do I have it queued up? Let's see if this works. Hold on. Yes, it worked.
Hey!
Hit the subscribe button. We would love it. So now that we have this new channel, we'd love to get the subscriber count up. So like the video, mash the subscribe button. I said it. I did it. I'm a YouTuber. Mash that subscribe button. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm delirious. It's too hot in my shed right now. Please hit subscribe. It'd be great. It'd help boost the channel up. We'd love to get the channel up. And as soon as we get to 100 subscribers on the channel, then we can get that nice little the Kessel chat, as opposed to the blue URL that we have right now. So 100 subscribers, that's our goal. If you can help us, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we're also, what's funny, Jeff, is, we both work in the tech industry, and I think some of our guests tonight work in the tech industry. And there's this great thing that's going around right now on social media and in the news about how people have in the tech industry, because of work from home, people have a side hustle. That some people are working multiple jobs. And I had someone recently ask me, oh, do you have a side hustle? And I said, no, but I am on a podcast. So this is my side hustle. In that I am so happy to create this content, and even the new videos that we're going to have on the channel. Again, I'm going to be I'm super excited about having some videos that we're going to have that are going to be about the Lietmoffs. That are inside of Star Wars, which are the themes, the music, the color story of Star Wars. And I know that you've been working on videos too, so it's going to be great. I can't wait to get all of this new stuff on the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited. And Kyle, thank you for subscribing. We appreciate it, man.
Right on.
Super appreciate
Good deal.
it. All right, so shall we get into it? Ryan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I've got some real deep references on some villains that we love to hate. I really kind of struggled with this, Jeff, because I'm a fan of some of the villains that we have in Star Wars. I love a great antagonist. Sometimes some great movies are made by not just the hero that you have, but if the antagonist is of the same like quality level. And so you think about things like the Dark Knight, the Christopher Nolan Batman movie, where the Joker is just as valuable in that movie as Batman. That Heath Ledger and Christian Bale together is what makes that movie possible. And so I really wanted to spend some time to think about like threats, people that are just super dangerous, and then of course villains that I just love to hate. And so of course I selected Dengar. No, I didn't select Dengar. He's got toilet paper wrapped on his head. I want to actually start with a relatively new villain, which look, see, there's Dengar right there, and not at all terrifying. I mean, Dengar right now just looks like he's been up all night.
In this picture right here, he looks like he's like dying, like he's turned into a corpse or something. It's terrible. Poor guy.
I thought what I'd do is I would select a villain that I feel like is relatively new, but also a lot of fun, which is Moff Gideon. I feel like Moff Gideon is the type of villain that I just love. I like villains that kind of enjoy being villains. Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian is this guy that almost has, if he had a mustache to twirl, he would. He's kind of the best of a lot of villains that you get inside of this universe, where you have them be very, very smart and intelligent. You have him being very lethal, very dangerous, and also very much single-minded. He is after the child, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get there. And that's what makes him such a lethal threat to the Mandalorian. He's someone that is a hunter, just like the Mandalorian. And so when you have a protagonist whose strengths are the exact same strengths as the antagonist, just as ruthless in the pursuit of those goals. Oh my gosh, it made this first season of The Mandalorian great. So I'd love to hear what you think about that, Jeff.
So it's so interesting. I had not even thought about him for this, and of course, as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh my god, he totally makes perfect sense. And for exactly what you said, like there are, and well, I have one too that I want to throw out there that's somewhat along these lines, but there's a distinct difference. So with Moff Gideon, exactly what you said. There are those villains they just like to be villainous. They like to be. Mm-hmm. They enjoy the thing that they do. And if he could have been a Sith, like if he had Force powers, he would have dove like headlong into the dark side. Like he would have just swam in it and like fully embraced it, because it's not even like a moral thing. Like it's not even like it's a mean like Anakin falling to Vader, or I'm trying to think of some others that were the same sort of way, where they did it for, in their own minds, a moral or a just cause, and it's caused them to fall even further. But the outset was not that. With him, you get the sense completely from him that like no, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly the reasons behind it, and he's like no, I am good. I am completely, my moral compass is pointing this way, or it's non-existent, and I'm totally okay with it. I have accepted this, and I don't even know that accepted is the right word. Like no, there's no accepted. Like this is who I am, and groovy, let's roll with it. And I think that's what makes him, especially for a show like The Mandalorian, where what we have in the show is not your classic clear good guy, clear bad guy. We
Yes.
finally learn about a clear bad guy, but not till pretty far into season one. Like he's not readily apparent in season one as like pulling the strings of all this. And then you don't have a clear good guy. You have the Mandalorian who is there. Like that's kind of about it. He happens to be there, and something tugs at his heartstrings, and he goes with it. But he's not the clear he's not the clear good guy, which I think is actually really makes Moff Gideon's character feel so much more evil than he probably normally would, because if he was contrasted by a purely good person, then you would feel this balance of like, we have the light and we have the dark, and they're balancing each other even in our minds when we're watching the script. But in this, it's like, no, he's just a DICK. Like, the guy is just a jackass. Period. Like, plain and simple, he's just evil. And even though the Mandalorian decides to pursue this and step up to him, it doesn't matter. So there is no actual balance, which makes his villainy feel even more bad, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. What I like too is that so there's this thing that Giancarlo Esposito is the actor that portrays Moff Gideon,
and he's amazing.
And he's great.
He's just a brilliant actor.
Yeah, you see him on Breaking Bad, like he's great. He's just a great actor already, but he brings so much to that to the role. And one of the things that I really like when what a villain does is it's when a villain is kind of like showing the level of control that they're in. And I'll use a really good example, which is Khan from Star Trek 2, which is when Ricardo Montalban was playing that role, he went like way over the top in one of the scenes. And the director, Nicholas Meyer, went to him and he said, hey, like, you know what's really scary is when someone who's dangerous is very calm. And then there is this great sequence where Khan lifts up one of these guys, and even when he's like taunting Kirk, he's very like monotone. He's very calm. He's cool. He's collected. And that seems very dangerous. And all I keep thinking about is when Moff Gideon was out in front of they're in that bar, right? And he's out there and he's just talking to them. And he's just trying to evoke like, hey, I am 100% in control right now. And he has some lines that he brings up. And then he's like, oh, and by the way, I'll give you a couple of hours to think about this. Because all he's basically telling them is, all I've got is time to wait for you to break. And there is something so scary about someone who is so calm in an extreme circumstance like that.
Yeah, you expect our nature, I feel like it is to expect that somebody who is evil to also be angry and to be heated and to be chaotic and out of control. And when they don't display those things, it's easy to be upset with them, or easy to be like, you know what? They're chaotic. They're the whirling dervish. They're the Tasmanian devil. I can center myself. But when they don't do that, your ire and your anger and your defensiveness towards them almost feels like it's dismantled, because they're not acting that way. They're clearly doing horrific things, but they're not acting that way. So how do you defend against that? How do you react to that? And it ends up making you feel like, oh my God, I have to react. And the person's just like, I don't need to react. I know exactly what I'm doing. And it, like, to your point, it is far creepier, because you know that they've already planned this and they've thought it through. And it also leads you to believe that they've thought far enough ahead that, like, how much farther past you have they already thought that they can still remain in this level of centeredness and control when they're interacting with you. And to watch that on the screen is just, it's almost diabolical, man.
No, and a great villain knows how to really like use a hero's strengths against them. And so like the Mandalorian's strength is he's got certain rules. One of which is he has no identity. It is the way. He's a Mandalorian. No one knows his face. No one knows who he really is. And he's got a very specific creed. And that creed almost creates a loyalty to other people. Moff Gideon turns that against him. By basically being, one, loyal only to himself, and then two, being able to say, I know that you're Din Djarin. So he even takes the anonymity away, which has been a shield for the Mandalorian. He takes away even his anonymity, and so he turns all of his strengths into weaknesses. And again, it's what a really great villain does to make themselves dangerous for a hero. And Giancarlo Esposito does it in a way. It reminds me of another very great character actor, Gary Oldman, who
Oh,
also is famous for playing those roles of very, very dangerous roles very calmly. And I'm thinking about things like Fifth Element or
mm-hmm.
The Professional, which are some of my favorite movies, and only goes over the top to like make the point. And of course, with Gary Oldman in The Professional, I'm thinking of Bring Everyone, Everyone.
Oh, I love that. I love that scene.
Yeah.
Sir, how many? He just works up for that. Like he's so calm and then looks at the guy and just, oh my god, that is one of the that movie and La Femme Nikita. Like as far as like watching the cleaner, or I forget what that French actor's name is. But
Jean Reno.
Jean Reno, that's right. Jean Reno, both La Femme Nikita and I think La Femme Nikita and in The Professional, like does such a good job. But Gary Oldman is like he is just. So many times I've seen him in movies where I didn't realize that Gary Oldman was in this movie and this other movie because he does the character so well that it's hard to tell it's actually two different people or that it's the same person playing two different roles.
Yeah, he's also, I see Rich made the comment, he's also in Lost in Space, in the remake of Lost in Space that came out in like the late 90s.
Oh, yeah. He was a bad guy.
He's actually, he's for a long time, Gary Oldman was the bad guy that you put into your movies. But he's also just amazing. And in the same way that Giancarlo is this great character actor.
Yeah.
That
what was the movie with Denzel Washington where you're not sure if he's blind or not, but he's got the Bible that's Braille?
Oh, the Book of Eli.
The Book of Eli. Yeah, he's the bad guy in that one. The post-apocalyptic. Yeah, he did that one great too. Because he was also sort of like, he's evil, but he's also sort of like measured in calm and collective until the moment that everything he knows is sort of tested, which is super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm sorry, Jeff. I know that I've talked like endlessly about this. Again, I love villains that that are not just like, oh, they're bad guys and they're baddies, but I love villains that are real tangible threats to your hero because they have the hero's strengths and also they are their opposite number. They're the people that can really test the hero in ways that they had not yet been tested. Yep. So I'm excited to hear, because I know you were already talking a little bit about one villain that I think we both love to hate. So I'm eager to hear your list.
But I'm gonna switch it up for you though. I changed. So I have one that I was talking about, but it's an obvious one that you and I love to talk about, and I want to talk about.
Calling an audible on the show, everybody.
I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I'm switching it up to what has become one of my favorite characters. Period. And evil and villainous and everything is Grand Moff Tarkin.
That's awesome. That's a great choice. A great choice.
Tarkin was always to me just he was the main face of the bad guys you saw in the first movie. Like Vader is there, yes, and he plays a role in it, of course. But Tarkin is really the person that you are sort of like you're like focused on, because he's the one, he orders the blowing up of Alderaan. Like he's going after Endor. Like he's the one ordering these things. It's not the Emperor, it's not Vader, it's Tarkin. Then we see him in Rogue One, and oh my god, like the digital editing to make that person look like Peter Cushing, especially like you want to focus your ire in that movie on, or your frustration on director Krennic, but you can't, because Tarkin just outshines him in being a badass evil person or villain in that movie. He just blows. I mean, and Phil, was it Ben Mendelsohn who plays Krennic in that? Like tries so hard to be that role, and then he just gets up to Tarkin, and Tarkin is just like smack him in the face left and right with like how far ahead he is, the things that he knows how to say, and the way that he says it. He's stoic, yet he's still like very commanding. But what set it for me is even seeing Rogue One, and then even seeing the few episodes where Tarkin is in the Clone Wars and interacts with Anakin, and you get a sense of like how the two of them are going to really line up after Anakin falls. Like you can really see it in their conversation. Mm-hmm. It's when I got to read the Tarkin novel. So I have the Tarkin novel in audio form.
Nice.
And it's amazing. I don't remember all the details because it's been a couple years since I listened to it. And I was remembering I should go back and listen to it again. But he's from Arrgh, which is in the Outer Rim, and it's a planet that is not only like a jungle foresty type planet, but it's also there's tons and tons of creatures that will kill you in a moment's notice. So trying to grow up and scrape out a life on Arrgh, according to the book, is really difficult to do. And there's all these trials that people have to, that the young men and women have to go through to try to survive, capture certain beasts, whatever else, to show that it's not to show that you're a man or you're a woman or coming of age. It's to show that you can survive and do the things in the world that are necessary for you to do to continue to live. That's really what it comes down to. And there's a quote I made sure to pull out because I kind of remembered it, but this is a quote he says in that book. Never try to live decently, boy. Not unless you're willing to open your life to tragedy and sadness. Live like a beast. Live like a beast, and no event, no matter how harrowing, will ever be able to move you. And to me, that is like the reason that, to me, that showcases who he is, because your first thought when you see him in episode 4 in Star Wars, or later on A New Hope, is he's evil. He's Moff Gideon. He's evil. He's just a bad guy. When you read this book and you see him in like Rogue One, you start to realize that he's not. He is a product of his upbringing and his environment. And the things that he does are not for purely evil's sake. He has a goal. And the goal isn't killing a bunch of people. The goal is certain things happening in the galaxy. The way that he goes about it are clearly not good, of course. Like, I'm not saying that anything he does is like, well, he did it for the right reasons. No, he blew up an entire planet and all the civilization. He's clearly not a good guy. But
this is not the apologist chat.
No,
For Tarkin. No,
the dude is evil, plain and simple. But that said, you realize that when I read the book and I learned a little bit more about him. You start to realize that characters like his are so amazing because the way that they're written is they are nuanced. There's depth behind them, and what drove them to be at the place that they're at today is not what you would expect. It's not, I came here because I hate people and I hate the galaxy and I want to kill everybody. It's never that simple. Like, evil is never, most of the time, that black and white. There are some cases where it is, but Tarkin to me is not that. And I love that about him because it to me, it sort of encapsulates everything that you and I have talked about throughout this entire show. Like, these stories are nuanced and they're interwoven, and they impact characters in a particular way because that's how they need to impact characters. And Tarkin, I think, is one who does that so well because he can play the politics and all the other things, but there's always a reason he does it. And it's not, I'm here doing this to screw somebody. It's, I'm doing this because there's an end that I need to reach. I will take whatever path is strategically advantageous for me in the process. And if that means your personal moral compass is bruised or jolted about because I went this way, I don't care. Because strategically, it made the most sense for me to get from point A to point B, and I think that's a nuance that is missed so often with characters like his, and I think that's why he adds so much to these stories. Is that he is not just doing this for the sake of like, I screw everybody else, I'm getting A to B. It's no, there's a strategy here, and I can't be bothered with, well, you don't really care for how I got there. Okay, but it still makes sense logically for me to do this to this, so that's what I'm going to go do. I didn't do it to be mean to you, but I also didn't do it. I didn't stop myself from doing it because that would be the nice thing to do. Like, I did it because, as the quote says, I'm going to survive and I'm going to thrive, and that's what my main goal is.
So that reminds me of a quote from a character that kind of reminds me of this setup, which is, you've got to fight every fight in your head, so that way when it happens, you already know what you'll do. And he is one of my kind of favorite schemy, villainy characters. I just realized that Tarkin is just a more successful version of this character, which is Peter Baelish, or Littlefinger, on Game of Thrones. Baelish, Littlefinger, is this guy who's like, grows up wanting to be this big thing, grows up on the smallest fingers of Westeros, in the Vale. And Baelish, all he wants is, Catelyn Stark. And as Varys says, he would burn the earth, or he would burn the world if he could be king of the ashes. And so he is a dangerous person in the exact same way as the way that you described Tarkin, because he sees things like chaos is a ladder, and his only kind of devotion is to basically ensure his own success. And while that might make him seem at times like he's a bureaucrat, sometimes bureaucrats are insidious, because they are two things that is dangerous, and
Mhm.
it's what makes great villains dangerous. They're patient and they're shrewd, and that is Tarkin. That is Littlefinger. It's dangerous when you have someone who's determined but also patient and shrewd.
I think
Um,
you know
yeah,
what, something I love about what you just said, and you triggered this in me, is part of the reason why I think we see we sometimes look at what the Jedi do as like, oh my
mhm,
God, why
mhm.
couldn't you just do that thing and this situation would just never happen again? A Sith
Yep.
would do it and just be taken care of, and the Jedi are like, no, because all life is valuable and we should take care of all life, etc. And the Sith seemingly don't care. It's not that simple though, and I think this is the same sort of situation. Is that like Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, like Tarkin, many of these, it's a strategy. My strategy is
Yeah.
to get from point A to point B, and I'm going to take the path that is necessary to get there. And if that hurts some feelings
Yeah.
along the way, like, okay, I have just that is the thing, and I've accepted that is a likely outcome. But it's too important for me to reach the end to concern myself with these little bruises and things that happen along the way. Whereas somebody who we consider to be the good guy, the good person, the good protagonist, they won't do that. They will overthink a situation to find any way around potentially creating those. I'm just using the term loosely as bruises. Like in that path to point B, they'll do point A1, A sub A, A dot I, anything they can do to avoid the bruising, which ends up taking them longer, causing more trouble for them, degrades them more, weakens them, all these things. So when they get to the final point, if there's a conflict to be had with the person we see as a villain, they're in a degraded state compared to the villain, and everyone looked at the villain and said, well, you're evil because you did all these things. And I don't think it's that simple. And I think that's what's interesting in these stories is it's not that simple. The villain is not inherently villainous or evil
Mhm,
because
mhm.
they disregarded the bruises. They understood them, but they made a calculated choice to get to a point that they needed to get to, and they've accepted that these things are going to happen. That doesn't, I personally don't feel like that is a definition for evil. That doesn't make them inherently bad. Now, if their reasons in doing those things were more sadistic or masochistic, like I'm doing this because I actually enjoy screwing you over, well, that's different. Like that's more like definition evil, villain, bad person. But if they did it like Tarkin has done, not because I do this out of pleasure, I do this because it's a means to an end for me, and the end is more important than what happens along the way. That I think that is too nebulous to call somebody purely a villain, which makes it kind of, for me, reframes a lot of the characters we have seen in Star Wars. And the one that we were both thinking about before, we can get into in more detail in a few minutes, is Thrawn. Like, because when you think about it like that, and if you've read any of the more recent, I'm speaking more of the audience, like if you've read any more of the more recent trilogies or novels that Timothy
Mhm,
Zahn has put out post Heir of the Empire, you see that it's not
mhm,
so.
mhm,
His
mhm.
path is not that simple. He does not just simply cause bruises or these side effects to happen and is not aware of them and doesn't do it out of pleasure or doesn't do it because he wants to. He does it because I still have to get to where I need to get to, and these things are going to happen. And I understand that. I know what they are, but I didn't choose them because I enjoy seeing that happen. I chose them because I still had my end was more important than what happens along the way.
Oh, and I think that the dividing line, because there's a like a spectrum of like who is a hero and who is a villain, and I mean like Tarkin blows up a planet. The guy's a villain. But I think that the line when you start to get into the characterization is heroes are typically selfless and villains are typically selfish. And I was even thinking about how that even colors the view of government. There is a now meme worthy dialogue between Anakin and Padme in episode 2, where Anakin says, what needs to happen is the politicians get together and they decide what's best for the people and they do it. And Padme looks at him like almost like, hey dummy, that is what we do. And then, but we don't always agree. To your point, the bruising that happens in dialogue, in compromise, in being selfless, and finding ways to work together with others. And what's Anakin's response? Well, they should be forced to agree. By who? By you? No, but by somebody wise. Well, that sounds a little bit like a dictatorship. Well, if it works. By the way, thank you everyone for watching me as I just performed what is a cringeworthy scene from episode 2. That shows how often I in fact did watch that movie. It is a cringe-worthy scene, but it is an amazing example of what people think when they start thinking of, hey, I just need to get from A to B, man. I just need to cut through it all and to get to where I want to go. And again, that gets you even to where Anakin in episode 3 says things like, I have brought security to my empire. It becomes a very selfish view. I need to get from here to there, so if I have to blow up Alderaan, guess what? I'm gonna do that. Versus the Jedi or anyone who's heroic. Leia, Mon Mothma, all of these people who are heroic, whether they're on the light side of the Force or not, are nonetheless trying to find ways to work with others. I don't want to be all Bernie Sanders, but it's not it's us. And that's the difference, I think, between your wretched hive of scum and villainy and your heroes, the people that are on the light side, so to speak.
It's interesting that you bring that comparison up because that scene you so eloquently acted out for us. Thank you.
Yes.
It was beautiful. Well done. Siskel and Ebert would be just kudos the whole time.
I mean, seriously, I don't understand why I was not cast in these movies.
I have no idea. I really don't.
I mean, again, now this is pod racing. See, great line delivery.
You and George Lucas were born very near, grew up very near each other. So I mean, clearly you must be like besties.
I have missed my calling.
You have, you did. What you made me think of though is, first off, in that scene, you can almost see, I forget exactly physically what Anakin does in the scene when he says, well, they should be made to. But all I ever hear in my head is the way I just said it, which is, well, they should be made to. And it's almost like he's standing there, the little kid on the playground when there's a rock and going, well, they should be made to, and kind of kick the little rock on the ground. That's what I think of every time he says that. And the reason I think I imagine that image in my head is because it is the response of, I don't want to say a child, but it's the response of almost childlike immaturity. And what I mean by that is or worldly immaturity. Somebody who has either not allowed themselves or had enough experience to understand the world around them and the beings around them and how things impact other living beings and creatures and intelligent species. It also indicates somebody who may also understand enough. Their cognitive abilities understand enough about what happens and the feelings and the emotions that have tackled them, but they're battling internally about, but it should still happen. I know it sucks, but I'm not going to say that out loud to you because then you have a conversation to be had. I'm going to tell you this, but you can see that they're struggling with it. And I think that's really interesting because I think that's what that mechanism right there is what fuels the idea that someone who's turned to the dark side can be brought back. They can be reclaimed from the dark side because the term conflict is used a lot by Palpatine and others. But I actually don't know that I like the word conflict in that case. I think I more like the word, like a word more like confused, or because it's the conflict is almost says, I know this to be true, but I feel this too, and I can't decide between them. And I don't think that's it. I think it's more about I am confused about how to decide between these, or how to view these two sets of feelings or emotions that I have, and how to rationalize them together to make a decision that I can live with. I think it's confusion. It's immaturity is what it is. I don't mean immaturity again, like you're too young, you're just a little, a puppy, you're a little kid. I mean, don't understand enough.
No. By the way, like all of those, if anybody's watching this and is like, I have a significant other that keeps saying things like that, those are red flags. Like what did Oprah say?
If your
When
partner says to
someone,
you, "Oh, puppy," you might want to have a conversation. I'm just
yeah, no, exactly. When Oprah said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them," that was
truth.
that. Like these are like real big problems. Anakin is just a mess of red flags. And I that's my big problem with the prequels is the only reason why Padme and Anakin get together is because the script says and then they fall in love. Because I think anybody else would have been like, oh wow, you killed all those Tusken Raiders, I gotta go.
Yeah, I got a thing. You know what?
Yeah,
Maybe we need to slow this down a little bit. I'm gonna go. I'm
yeah,
gonna go. How about I stay at my apartment and you stay at your apartment
yeah,
for a while, and we'll just kind of figure things
yeah.
out.
Well, we'll see how this goes. But yeah, it's a terrible amount of immaturity that's there. But again, I found I think about that scene as a really great example of one of those people is heroic, and that's because they recognize kind of like, hey, like there's real work and effort that goes into things
Mhm.
like compromise. And then there's someone who's like, oh, I know what's right. I can just enforce my will upon people and then I'll get there. But yeah, by the way, I'm seeing all of these notes about Jar Jar and Jabba in the chat. I will say that there is a great Jar Jar is the secret Sith Lord set of videos, and oh my gosh, I'm not gonna like conspiracy theory my way through this, but I kind of am leaning now onto is Jar Jar the secret Sith? I mean, he pretty much sells out the Republic and creates, allows these things to happen. So
It's
yeah,
an
yeah,
interesting series for sure.
mhm,
It really
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's interesting. I'm with you too on the heroic versus the not. It's, you know, I nope, lost my thought. I had a thought there and it's gone. I think we just talked it
Well,
through.
Hey, I will say this: the note about Jabba is well, before that, I'm gonna I've got a villain which is Jabba. I want to talk about Jabba because he is a villain that was gross when I was a kid, and he's gross now, and he's a gangster, and I love to hate Jabba the Hutt because he's just all like the personification of like, hey, like what's like an evil thing? I don't know. It's like kind of a weird looking slug that eats frogs. Yeah, that seems legit. Let's make this someone who's like totally selfish and self-absorbed. Yeah, like that's Jabba is the spirit animal of so many selfish people in the world. But there was a question in there in the chat around, are there, I think it's Joanna, any villains that we hate to love? And there is a villain and I can make a case for this person being a villain that I hate to love, and that is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a mass manipulator who is like just gaslighting Luke for 3 movies,
Mm-hmm.
and granted, the hero of the prequel trilogy, but the guy and also many animated shows. But oh my gosh, I gotta say there is a certain amount of villainy when you start to look at the older Obi-Wan. Again, there, if you ever need an example of what gaslighting sounds like, and I'm not trying to trivialize gaslighting, I mean the guy is like legitimately doing it. um uh Luke honestly turns to his friend and mentor, Ghost Obi-Wan Kenobi, and says to him, Ben, I can't kill my own father. And he feels this real emotion, real feeling. And Obi-Wan Kenobi says to him, well, then I guess the Empire has already won. You were our only hope. And that is such a terrible thing to do when Luke then says, hey, wait a second. You just said I'm your only hope, but Yoda spoke of another. Oh crap, so he knows the truth. Well, the other Yoda spoke of is your twin sister, who I didn't tell you about either. And I'm only supplying you with knowledge when you need it or when you find out about it.
Or when I decide that it's convenient for me or apropos for my own goals to tell you.
Oh, they are in an unhealthy relationship. If you look up toxic relationships, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker is there. He is not a friend to Obi-Wan to Luke Skywalker, and in fact is Dumbledorian in his way of I'm just trying to keep him alive until the moment that he's got to go to the slaughter. It is yeah, oh my gosh, like of villains that I love to hate, Obi-Wan Kenobi's kind of at the top, and I will take, I'm standing here, I will take on all people who say, oh no, he's a hero at the end. Is he?
Is he though?
Is he a hero?
I mean, the line, and maybe I'll get the wording wrong, but Joanna, I'm glad you said this, because the line where he says, "But Obi-Wan, you told me Vader killed my father," and he said, "Well, I told you the truth from a certain point of view."
From a certain point of view.
It's like, what the hell? What do you mean from a certain point of view? Like, there is no point of view here. Vader is my dad. Like, the end. Like, metaphorically speaking, he killed my father. No, like, he's literally the physical embodiment because he's actually my dad. Under the suit, there's a body in there, and that's my dad. Like, that's Anakin's. I mean, it's gaslighting. It's manipulative. Like, I love the character. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love Obi-Wan to death.
I love Obi-Wan to death.
But like, when you think about it for a hot minute, when you think about it for a hot minute, you're like, dude, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, man.
Yeah, if you had a friend that was doing that to you, if you found out that your mentor was manipulating you to kill your own father, who you did not know about, that was your father, keeping secret from you the fact that you have a sister, and then basically like urging you on and being like, hey man, like you got to go and train so that way you can go and right a wrong that I did. It's kind of like Obi-Wan has this massive debt. He's done this terrible thing, and he compounds it by doing another terrible thing, which is basically like manipulating the person who he had been previously manipulating into killing each other. In any other movie, that person's the bad guy.
Yeah.
He's not Gandalf.
No.
He is very much Dumbledore. And I can also make a very good claim that Dumbledore, not as good of a character as I think that we would all like to wish he was.
We should do that one sometime, because that's actually not, because that's not a super hard case to make either. Here's another one. Have you ever watched the show Torchwood, spinoff of Doctor Who?
I've only watched a couple of episodes of Torchwood. I know that I'm losing a ton of geek cred by saying that.
It's okay.
I watched a ton of Doctor Who, all of the new Doctor Who, 10th Doctor, 11th Doctor, even the 12th Doctor, and now the 13th. But no, I did not watch enough Torchwood.
So it was only 2 seasons, or maybe 3 seasons at most. 2 seasons. Thank you. It was hard to get through because it's intense. Like it's adult level intense compared to Doctor Who. It actually, comparatively speaking, is like the 13th Doctor. Like, I loved her performance, whatever, I can't remember her name, but her performance of Doctor Who, I loved it. But the episodes were too intense. I think I got 2 episodes down, and I'm like, I can't watch. It was like watching The Boys. I'm like, I after a certain point, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's great. It is amazing, but it was too intense for me. Anyway, in Torchwood, and I think it's the 2nd season, Captain Jack Harkness, who's the main character, been alive for a long time, has a daughter, and she's 30s or 20s or whatever it is. And there's an episode where this creature comes back to Earth, like the 338, or it has some sort of number associated, in this big like container filled with gas. You don't see the creature. It's like this massive blob. You hear it talk. Anyway, for some reason in the show, it needs a sacrifice. And it needs a particular sacrifice. And what Captain Jack decides to do is sacrifice his daughter's son, his grandson, who's like 7 years old, and sacrifices him to this creature. and the kid's gone. Like basically the creature sucked its brains out, like, or its mind out and it's gone. And then the creature, this alien leaves Earth and is gone. And you get towards the end of the story, and I apologize for a spoiler alert on this one, because you think Jack has done some like manipulative things and some like he doesn't share information very well, blah blah blah. He's not he isn't even an anti-hero. The dude's just confused and he does some pretty shady stuff. But at the end of the episode, he's in the hospital outside of his grandson's hospital room, and the mom walks out of the hospital room. Son's basically clinically dead. Walks out, turns right, sees her father, and just stares at him. Jack stands up and looks at her, almost thinking, okay, we'll get to talk about this. And the daughter just puts her hands down and just turns around and walks away. Just walks the other way down the hall. And you know instantly that, like, first off, you knew coming in, like, dude, she's not going to forgive you. Like, you killed her son. You killed your grandson.
Yeah.
You thought to save the world. Or sure, to save the planet, of course. But, like, you took her son. You couldn't pick anything else. Like you took your daughter's son. And your daughter walks away. Like, you realize very quickly when you see that it's that situation. Like any other situation like that, someone would be like, dude, no, we are not. This relationship, it's done right now. And that is so many instances where that should have happened. Like any other character would be like look at Obi-Wan, dude, what? Wait, you literally just told me this. You were a liar. I'm out, dude. Peace. I'm good.
Even when Obi-Wan is like, oh no, but Obi-Wan sacrificed himself so that way Luke could get away on the Millennium Falcon. Did he sacrifice himself, or did he tell Vader, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine?
I'll become more powerful.
What? I'm now immortal. And then he becomes immortal. This is a character that I'm telling you, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi and Thanos. It's like,
with the exception of the genocide.
Yeah,
Thanos.
I mean, seriously, there's a case to be made that Obi-Wan Kenobi is Thanos dragging Gamora to go and get the Soul Stone.
Oh my God! Yes, yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
When Gamora sees him weeping, oh, she's like, "Oh my God, you're weeping. What are you doing?" And she's like, oh, God, you are so particular. And then the Red Skull guy looks at her and says, those tears are not for him. And then he just grabs her and throws her. And he's like, all right, cool, I'm done. It cost me, and then at the end, it cost me everything. But you're doing it anyway. Like, it doesn't stop him from doing anything. Yeah.
Just like Littlefinger, just like everybody else. The villains are ruthless in the pursuit of their goals, whereas heroes will often have a rule, like the Batman. Like the Batman can't kill. But yeah, I cannot say this enough. Ben Kenobi, actual villain, and I'm standing by to hear it. Like, come at me.
Come at me, bro.
And the last thing that I'll say about all of this is, if he's not a villain, there's one piece of advice he could tell Luke, which is, hey, and which he doesn't, which is, hey, Luke, just by the way, if you ever really get into a fight with any of these Sith guys, they shoot lightning from their fingers. So don't get cocky and throw your lightsaber aside, because you can use that to deflect the lightning.
It's a thing you can do.
And it's actually really terrible. You don't want to get caught getting that lightning. And both Yoda and Obi-Wan don't tell Luke that. So as again, I tell any good friend, oh hey, watch out! There's a hole in the ground. Watch your step. Obi-Wan and Yoda don't even say, hey, by the way, the blue lightning. You got to keep an eye out for that. So yeah, I'm telling you, I'm not saying Yoda, but definitely Obi-Wan.
Definitely,
Obi-Wan, master manipulator. So yeah.
And I think that is a great place to wrap up the show tonight. We're just going to leave it on the note that Ryan is doubling down that Obi-Wan Kenobi is really a villain. Where's the mic?
We hate to love.
Yeah. Hate to love. Joanna, there it is. We've answered your hate to love. Everyone, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This has been awesome. I love these topics because they're so contrary to what you want to think of all of these characters. It makes it a lot more fun. It really does.
Yeah. No, and I mean, honestly, I feel like we could have. I feel bad because I want to talk about Jar Jar, who is just a character that I love to hate. Oh my gosh, we could have spent the evening talking about Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, easily.
Just because, I mean, oh my gosh, so terrible. And I also can do a relatively good Jabba the Hutt impression. Han me boogie. So I feel like we could, or I'm spared you all of that. But still, this is a topic that I feel like we got to go back to this well, Jeff, because there's a lot that we could get.
Yep, so, I totally agree. Yeah. So that'll be on the list. We'll come back with it. Let's see, Rich, Kyle, Joanna, thank you all so much for being in the chat, having a good time with us this whole time. This has been a blast.
This has been great.
Every week we'll be here every Thursday. Ryan and I have been talking a little bit about like maybe changing the days and times. Kids are back in school, so we'll figure out if there's gonna be a change to be made. We'll let all of you know. But we'll be here on this new YouTube channel, so please hit the subscribes or pass it along. Tell your friends, tell your family, like and subscribe. I don't know. Trying to be a silly YouTuber there. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, thank you everyone so much. Oh, actually, hold on. Before we wrap, I'm going to make sure that my outro file is actually fixed this time so that you just see my face in the intro like has been the last couple of times because I keep forgetting to fix this file. So let me do that real quick. We'll stall for time while I fix it. Oh my
right
gosh,
on.
boy.
And if I'll say this, if anyone's got we're going to be looking at the chat. If you've got some villains that you love to hate that we haven't talked about, please let us know. And if you have some topics that you would like us to cover in the future, oh my gosh, we need we need that type of feedback from the viewers.
Yes, please.
Let us know your ideas for things that you would like us to cover. And if there are other impressions, if there are other scenes that you would like one of us to perform, whether it is one of those, scenes, the cringeworthy scenes from episode 2, or again, if you need, I can do a pretty convincing Tusken Raider as well. I look forward to your requests.
Absolutely. Our time, we are absolutely happy to take any requests for voice acting, for dramatizations here on the show. Time is billable, so just put a comment in the chat and we'll get a statement of work set up for you. It's no problem at all. We're happy to do it.
That's right. That's right.
All right, let's try this outro. Everyone, have a great one. We'll see you next week.
Hey, good night, everybody.